The year 1776. The air across the 13 American colonies is thick with tension. It's a feeling that's been building for years, kind of like the slow, steady rumble before a great earthquake. People are talking, in taverns, in churches, and out on the streets of cities like Boston and Philadelphia. A new idea is taking hold. It's the idea of freedom. For more than a century, these colonies have been part of the mighty British Empire. They're ruled by a king who lives an entire ocean away. But, the people here are starting to feel different. They're no longer just English subjects, they're becoming something new, they're becoming Americans. This growing unease, well, it didn't just appear overnight. It was born from a long list of grievances. The British Crown needed money and saw the colonies as a source of wealth. So it imposed taxes without asking for the colonists' consent. There was the Stamp Act, which taxed paper. There was the Tea Act, which led to the famous Boston Tea Party. These issues weren't just about money, they were about a fundamental principle. The colonists believed they shouldn't be taxed by a government where they had no representatives. They called it taxation without representation. It was a cry for fairness, a demand to be heard and respected by their own rulers. Across the land, men and women felt the weight of British control in their daily lives. Soldiers, known as redcoats, were stationed in their towns, a constant visible reminder of the king's power. These soldiers were often quartered in private homes, an intrusion that felt deeply personal and unjust. The colonists were proud people, hard-working and independent. They had carved a life out of a wild and challenging land. They believed they had earned the right to govern themselves, to make their own laws, and to pursue their own destiny without a distant monarch dictating their every move. The feeling was simple. They had grown up, and they were ready to leave home. This spirit of defiance wasn't just found in angry protests. It was rooted in the very soul of the colonial experience. People had come to America seeking freedom of religion, economic opportunity, and a chance to build a better life. They were farmers, merchants, and artisans who valued self-reliance. They read pamphlets and newspapers that spoke of liberty and the rights of man. Thinkers like John Locke had written about the idea that governments should protect the natural rights of citizens. These ideas spread like wildfire, planting the seeds of revolution in the hearts and minds of a people yearning to be free. The stage was set for a dramatic, world-changing event. In the midst of this growing storm, leaders emerged. They were men of great intellect and passion, driven by a powerful vision for a new kind of country. One of the most important was John Adams, a lawyer from Massachusetts. Adams was fiery, brilliant, and deeply committed to the cause of independence. He worked tirelessly, writing and speaking with a force that inspired others. He saw clearly that a break with Great Britain was not just possible, but necessary. He believed that the colonies had a unique destiny, a chance to create a government based on principles of liberty and justice for all its citizens. Another key figure was the wise and worldly Benjamin Franklin. By 1776, Franklin was already famous as a scientist, inventor, and diplomat. He brought years of experience and a calm, steady hand to the revolutionary cause. He had spent time in London and understood the British mindset better than most. Franklin's pragmatism and wit were invaluable. He knew how to build consensus and persuade people to see a larger picture. He was the elder statesman, the voice of reason who helped guide the more passionate revolutionaries, reminding them that unity was their greatest strength in the face of a powerful empire. And then there was Thomas Jefferson, a quiet, thoughtful planter and lawyer from Virginia. Jefferson was not a great public speaker like Adams, but he possessed a remarkable gift for writing. He could take complex ideas about freedom, government, and human rights and express them in clear, beautiful, and powerful language. He was a student of the Enlightenment, deeply influenced by the great philosophers who wrote about liberty and self-governance. It was this young man who would be given the monumental task of drafting the words that would announce America's intentions to the entire world and shape its future. These men, along with others like them, were the architects of American independence. They were not perfect. They were men of their time, and some were slaveholders, a contradiction that would haunt the nation for generations. Yet, they shared a profound belief in the possibility of a better world. They risked everything, their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, for an idea. They believed that ordinary people could govern themselves, that a nation could be founded not on the power of a king, but on the consent of the governed. It was a radical, dangerous, and incredibly hopeful idea. In the hot summer of 1776, leaders from all 13 colonies traveled to Philadelphia. They gathered in a single room in the Pennsylvania State House, a place we now know as Independence Hall. This meeting was the Second Continental Congress. It was a collection of some of the brightest minds in America. They came from different backgrounds and had different opinions, but they were united by a common purpose. They had to decide the fate of the colonies. Should they continue to seek peace with Great Britain, or was it time to declare themselves a new, independent nation? The debate was intense and passionate. The delegates argued for weeks. Some, like John Dickinson of Pennsylvania, urged caution. They were afraid of a war with the most powerful military force on earth. They still hoped for reconciliation with King George III. But others, led by the passionate arguments of John Adams, insisted that the time for talking was over. They pointed to the battles that had already been fought at Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill. Blood had been shed. The king had declared the colonies to be in a state of rebellion. There was no turning back. Independence was the only path forward. Finally, the Congress made a decision. They would declare independence. They formed a committee to write the official document. The committee included John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and 3 others. But they all agreed on one thing. Thomas Jefferson should be the one to write the first draft. Jefferson went to his rented rooms and, for 17 days, he worked tirelessly. He did not try to invent new ideas. Instead, he took the powerful ideas about freedom and government that were already in the air and wove them into a single, eloquent statement of purpose for the new nation. When Jefferson presented his draft, the Congress did not simply accept it. They debated it, line by line. They were creating a nation, and every word mattered. Led by Franklin and Adams, they made changes, carefully editing the text to ensure it represented the will of all the colonies. They sharpened the language, making the list of grievances against the king even more powerful. This process of collaboration was crucial. It meant that the final document was not the work of one man, but the collective voice of the American people, speaking through their chosen representatives. The heart of the Declaration of Independence is its breathtaking preamble. In just a few sentences, Thomas Jefferson laid out a revolutionary philosophy of government. "We hold these truths to be self-evident," he wrote, "that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." These were not just words. They were a profound promise. They declared that rights do not come from a king or a government. They are natural, belonging to every person from birth. It was an idea that would change the world forever. The document then goes on to state that the purpose of government is to protect these rights. And if a government fails to do so, the people have the right to change it or create a new one. This was the ultimate justification for their rebellion. The Declaration then lists the many injuries and usurpations of King George III, building a powerful case for why the colonies were forced to separate. It was a formal indictment, a declaration of causes that showed the world that their actions were not taken lightly, but were the result of a long train of abuses designed to establish an absolute tyranny over the states. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress formally adopted the final text of the Declaration. The President of the Congress, John Hancock, signed it first, his signature large and bold so the king could read it without his spectacles. Over the next few weeks, 55 other delegates would add their names. This was an act of incredible bravery. By signing the document, these men were committing treason against the British Crown. They were putting their lives on the line for the cause of freedom. They were no longer colonists. They were the founding fathers of the United States of America. The Declaration of Independence was more than just a political document. It was a statement of human ideals. It marked the birth of a nation founded on the radical idea that power should belong to the people. Its influence spread far beyond America's shores, inspiring countless movements for freedom and democracy around the globe. It became a beacon of hope for all who dream of a world where every person is treated with dignity and has the right to shape their own destiny. The story of 1776 is the story of how a nation was born from a powerful and enduring idea.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.